Hello and welcome to a new episode of The Ramp. Today we are super excited because we have Karin Bergström with us. She has over 10 years of experience within HR. She's been working at the Viaplay Group. Now she's the VP of Culture and HR, or VP and People at Joblyon. A pleasure to have you on The Ramp, Karin.
Thank you so much. And all these titles, People and Culture, HR, hard to keep up with them sometimes.
It's a jungle out there. It's definitely a jungle.
It is.
Cool. So I think, at least on my end, I want to learn a bit more about how you got into HR and also your journey working for several companies.
Yeah, I started off, I think that the classical, journey when you work with HR, with recruitment at a consultancy agency. And after that, I've been working at, as you mentioned, different type of scale-ups, mainly tech companies, and also within the media industry, as you mentioned, Viaplay Group. So I got the experience working with culture, you could say, in different type of forms and different type of settings. And it's been super interesting to see how you work with culture in a growth company or at the growth stage compared to like a startup doing everything from scratch, and then at this larger corporate organization. And I think, working at Joblyon today with HR, I think culture is actually my core, or actually the thing I love doing the most. So I'm super happy I got the opportunity to have like a full hour almost talking about culture together with you.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I looking at your background and also your passion for culture and what you share on LinkedIn, I'm really excited to dive into the details here. Okay, let's dissect the culture topic a bit more. If you were to explain company culture to somebody who doesn't work in HR, how would you describe it?
Good question, because culture is something you hear the word that companies needs to work with the culture, and what does that really mean? So I think it's a great it's great to start there, and for me to try to explain it for someone not working with HR, I would say it's the organization's persona. So it's the different behaviors, the different traits that you show both internally but also externally to customers, for example. So I would say these traits are also extra visible during times of challenge, but also during times of success. So I think if you're like hesitant or do not really know, okay, what is the culture at the company, I would actually start looking at that. So what are the traits and behaviors that your employees shows off during times of struggle and when they face challenges? I think that says a lot. And also, I usually maybe sounds super like cliche, but when I think about culture, I think about like a ship, and that the ship is the organization. Culture for me is the sail. I think usually companies hopefully they have clear goals, they know where they're heading, their vision, but I think sometimes you see it as two separate things. Maybe you work a lot with your culture, you define it, you set your values and behaviors, and you have a clear vision, but those are not aligned. So that's something I think is super interesting to make sure you start in the right angle, because if you throw people into a group, you will have a culture. I mean, it's hard not to have that, but how do you make sure that the culture and the behaviors that you promote actually leads you to the right direction? So that's something, looking back at previous companies, I've learned the hard way. You sit down, you ask them please to define it, but is that really correlated to the company goals? So I think, you have to start there. And maybe it's easy for me to say, working with people and culture, that the culture is key. It doesn't matter how strong of a vision you have or how good the product that you're selling is. You have to have a company where everyone are aligned in terms of what the culture and especially the behaviors. If you boil it down, what does that really mean?
very good answer. And it's as we mentioned before, like culture can seem a bit intangible, and it can be a bit abstract as a concept, and it's also like behavioral at the group level, which is difficult to sort of pinpoint. So trying to understand, coming from the outside and in, trying to understand what the culture looks like. What's your take on how do you fetch that data? How do you get the objective view of the company's culture?
Yeah, that's hard because it's the same thing as when you look at the personality. I mean, you have personality assessments. Of course, you can get like an overview, but I think the first thing, and what I actually did at Joblyon when I started here, was that I realized that, okay, we have a very strong culture, but why and what is that in terms of behaviors? So I sat down with a focus group. I collected employees from each and every team, of course, to get insights from all different perspectives. And we had several workshops really digging deep down into, okay, why Joblyon, for example, why we talk about happiness. I mean, that word is just like super big. Like, what does that really mean for the employees working at Joblyon? So we spend a lot of time in really understanding, okay, what is the culture today? We also did a lot of surveys with all of the employees at the company. And then we connected that to the vision. So we realized, okay, there might be some behaviors that are not like in general bad behaviors. I would say there's a lot of behaviors that we had previously that were really good, but we realized, okay, to be able to reach the goals that we have, we need to tweak this. So that's what we did. We gathered all the data from the surveys, from the workshops, and connected those behaviors to the company vision, and tried to understand what do we need to remove and what do we need to enhance and perhaps also add. And of course that can have consequences, because also looking at my journey at the Viaplay group, we did a big change. We rebranded the whole company from Modern Times Group to Nordic Entertainment Group, and then I was in the group trying to establish the new values. And I would say that journey was super interesting, because what we did there was that we worked a lot with the employees' own personal values, and I think that is also something that you forget easily. And the reason why that is so important is because if you establish new behaviors or look into the company behaviors, perhaps some employees will leave. And I would say that is not a bad thing, because maybe you're in a new stage. You're not this company that you were for 20 years ago. Maybe you want to attract new type of persona. So to get the end here to this long speech is that I think you need to spend time on sitting down with the employees, gathering that data, and then connecting that to the company vision, and making sure that the employees can connect to the values, because if they're not connecting to that, they will not be as engaged, I would say.
That's an interesting way of doing it, and I think that the key question of like, how is culture created? Is it bottom up or top down? I think it's like a interplay between the both, but very much bottom up driven as well. And you need, when you do change management, you definitely need engagement, and you need that input to be able to drive that change. While at the same time, also excluding some of those behaviors or areas that's not leading you to success or the direction you want to take. So could you give us a bit sort of a teaser there, or a look under the hood when it comes to what you found over at Joblyon in that process? What did you scrap, and what did you keep, or what did you add in your culture process?
Yeah, good question. I would say, just high level, what I thought was interesting was you have to have a purpose with your culture, because if you don't have that, again, you don't have a direction. So that was one thing that I found was super important. Like, what is the purpose with these behaviors? It's not just because, of course, we want a healthy work environment, but again, what result do we want spending time on this? And also one thing, implementing it end to end. And I guess people listening into this, about this. It's not just only, okay, now we have our behaviors, like frame it and put it on the wall. I would say that's the worst type of example how you implement behaviors. But to be honest, like I see a lot of companies today doing that. And also to be honest about our journey, when we did this, I was super happy when we had our behaviors in place, but it took time. Like now it's 1 year ago, so it's still very fresh and new. But what I spend time in trying to establish is making sure that the behaviors are implemented end to end, so that they're visible and that we use them in a recruitment process, onboarding. We even use them in our salary and performance review. So that was actually the first time we tried that out last year. And it was very interesting to see that our employees actually thought it was a good setup, because what they were asked to do was not to grade themselves based on metrics, based on did you reach your deadlines. Of course, that is important as well, but they got the opportunity to actually grade themselves based on the behaviors. Because if you look at metrics, it's not always up to you. That could always be, you're a sales rep entering a new market. Perhaps you're like working your ass off to reach your targets, but the targets might be not correct, and the market is not mature enough. There will always be reasons why high performers perhaps do not always meet their metrics. So I think behaviors are much more interesting to look at, because that is up to you how you behave day to day.
I think it makes sense. I like how you have implemented it into the day-to-day with performance reviews and also salary reviews, etc. So that's a very good way of driving change management in my opinion. Part of the question that I asked was related to if there were any parts of the culture that you had that you scrapped, that you sort of this is not leading to where we want to go. That's I don't know, a lot of companies don't open up about these things, but I think that's it's part of doing business, and the cultures evolve, and sometimes there's stuff that we're not doing in a good way and we need to change. So I don't know if there are any stuff you remember from that process.
Yeah, it's hard to say like we scrapped this, since we didn't have anything on paper, like what are our behaviors. But I would say, to be honest, there, like we had a culture that was, again, focused on happiness, and it's still our core. And for us, that means that, okay, it's not walk around and with a big smile on your face and be happy every day. Of course, that's great. But for us, that means how can we create an environment where each and every employee feels meaningfulness in their day-to-day work, and also that they can reach their full potential. So I think that's something that we established more, instead of just talking about happiness as this fluffy happy-go-lucky type of culture. I think it's something that I wouldn't say we had that before, but since we didn't have it in like wording, we couldn't define it. I think when we talked about happiness before, it might have sound not that performance driven. So now I think we talk a lot about creating happiness in a performance culture, to combining those two, and it is a challenge, but I think performance and happiness, you could still find a performance culture that is based on employees actually being happy, feeling engaged. So I would say, we didn't scrap anything per se, again, since we didn't have anything in writing, but I would say it's more, performance driven at the moment, and also much more structured, making sure that we don't only have like clear metrics, but we also have clear behaviors that everyone needs to feel accountable for. And I think that is actually something I want to highlight. I had a very interesting conversation with the CEO of this big CRM system, and he talked about the recruitment process. And I thought it was so interesting that when they hire someone, the employee or the person hopefully signing the contract in the end, they do not only sign up for a role description, they also sign up for the company culture.
Whoa, that's cool.
Super cool. And of course, like in our interviews and in our process, we talk about the culture, but it's something I will definitely try out in our processes, because at in their culture at this company, he told me that, you know what, we're super transparent with the candidates we interview. We say that at this company, you will work a lot of hours. Like the performers at our companies, they do that not because they're pushed to do it, because they want to. Is that something you can sign up for? And I thought that was, it's just an example. I don't think at Joblyon we will ask people to sign up for, you need to work X amount of hours, but I thought it was interesting, approach.
The principle is super interesting, and it's definitely a next level commitment when you sign a paper saying that, okay, I adhere to these cultures and culture, I think there are so many parallels between what you described and also the journey we've been through. I think for us, happiness and employee satisfaction has been key to our success, but also our culture. However, also we've gone through a bit of a transformation where we also have needed to recalibrate also that a bit back to like performance at core. We're a consulting business, of course, so clients play a big part in our success and client success. So that interplay has made us more aware or more focused on the performance aspect of the culture. I think also something that's different between Joblyon and Amby in this case is that you didn't have anything written down. I think we had maybe a bit too much written down at the point. So it was difficult for people to comprehend, because the more we elaborated, the less they understood in a way. And that's not up to them. It's more about lack of clarity on our end. So we've gone through this journey now and also implemented that into the performance reviews for the first time now, the values. And I think I definitely see that this is the way forward for us. And, so I share the enthusiasm regarding
but so interesting to hear. Like, how did you do this? As you said, you had your values established and you had to change those. Like, did you do the similar type of process that I described, or how did you?
I think so. We did a lot of focus groups. We've had data from employee satisfaction. We had people internally working on this and driving this, and also testing it at different levels of the organization, and then try to gather as much data as possible for us to make that adjustment.
Interesting.
And also being clear about like where we have global ambitions, we're going for the world domination. At what cost? So what does that mean in terms of the behavior as a group and on the individual level for us to achieve that? So I think it was very much an awareness for us and a calibration for us to focus on where we want to go. And I think we're still early days. We redefined our values earlier this year, so it's still in a formative phase. But I would say that we've gone off to a good start here. So I'm looking forward to the continuous journey now.
And that's also interesting, as you said, when you do this whole process. It was the same thing for us, because I think when you have a culture established, I think you need to also stick to it. You cannot like tweak it every year. That's just confusing. But I think it's super important. We did the same thing after our first performance review. Of course, I reached out and asked employees, like, what did you think about this whole setup? Also grading yourself based on behaviors. And what actually popped up was that our employees thought it was a really, really good, but that was not enough. I wish I could stand there saying that our performance review for this year will be 100% value-based, but they actually will not be 100% value-based. What we ended up with was, and I guess this is super common, companies doing this today, but we will do a mix. So what our employees missed out on was, having a clear context to operate in, not only in terms of behaviors, but also what are my actual metrics, what are my goals? Because again, related to meaningfulness, it's very hard, I realized, to see, okay, how does my job actually bring meaningfulness to the company if I don't have clear metrics and clear goals.
Yeah.
Perhaps super obvious, but I think for us, hopefully, let's see now in January when we do this, so we will have both. So I hope we found a good balance for us at least. Yeah.
Oh, but it's super interesting, and would love to catch up to understand more of the long term results there. And that brings me a bit to the next question. So, how can a person within the people field measure success of the culture? So, how do we take the temperature? How do we assess if we've succeeded with initiatives and all the work we put into culture?
Good question. Culture, it takes time, so I think you should not be too stressed out. Things like ENPS score is, of course, I think a good base. You can always start there to see, okay, what did we have in terms of ENPS score before we changed our values, if that's what you did, and then follow up on that maybe after 6 months, a year, and then always checking that the ENPS is good, because if the ENPS is not good, then you have a problem. And also you have to be prepared that, as I said, with retention, I would say look at the retention rate, but perhaps in the beginning your retention will look bad, but perhaps it's not bad if I refer to what I said before. But I think long term, I think if you have a healthy culture, the retention rate should, of course, be low, because then it's an indicator that you keep the top performance and the talents, because you have a good culture, basically. I would also, when you do perhaps a shift like you did from having one type of culture to another, I would also define, okay, we're going to reach these goals in 2-3 years. What type of ICP, but instead ECP, like what is the employee, the ideal employee profile? What type of behaviors do we want to attract? Because if you manage to really establish the new type of culture that you want to, then you can, of course, follow up and see, did we really manage to attract the talents that we wanted to attract to our organization?
That's a very good point. I think I'm a bit curious when we've talked so much about the process over at Joblyon. You've mentioned some values. So, in your eyes, how would you describe Jobyon's culture?
Yes, good question. It's I think when I started at Joblyon, I just had this feeling. I couldn't, describe it. But to go back to where I started, I would say for me, Jobyon's culture is all about two things, and it's meaningfulness and it's happiness. And again, happiness, I would say, is the foundation. And for us, that means all the things I mentioned before, that we create this environment where each and every employee can thrive. And to be able to do that, I think when we talk about culture, for me, leadership is key. And that we have leaders that feel that they're accountable. Perhaps we have leaders that do not sign up for all the different behaviors that we have, but they need to still do that because they're the phase out towards their teammates. So if you find that, or at least for Joblyon, when we found that, strong leadership within the organization, leaders that could actually sit down with the employees and really understanding what are their motivators, what do they want to do in life. I think that's been the key for us, creating this happiness culture. And also one thing that I think is important is that we have leaders, or we talk about that during our leadership sessions, like how can we have these meaningful conversations with our employees that are not only focusing on metrics. That's one thing, but also looking at the fact that, Joblyon is a period of everyone's life. Of course, I would love to stand here and say everyone will work at Joblyon until they're 70, but if we're honest,
I haven't read your contract yet, but
exactly. That's what I signed up for. But I think our managers are really good at, talking about the fact that this is a period of your life. We want you to grow during these years. If it's 4 years or 10 years, like how can I support you as a manager to reach your goals? And some employees at a company, they're super happy in their roles, but perhaps they're dreaming about starting their own company in a couple of years. And I think it's super important to address that, because if you address that with the employee won't feel that, okay, now I'm being, judged, or, when I talk about the things I want to do when this period is over, you open up for interesting conversations. I think if you just, approach the whole idea of Joblyon, it's just a period, and not a long term, like a life.
Do you think that if I were to ask the same question to other people at Joblyon, that there would be a consistent answer, and is that an ambition in itself?
Yeah, also very interesting, because again, going back to when I worked at Viaplay, or at that time we went from MTG, or Modern Times Group, to Nent Group, and I mentioned the whole part, or the importance of relating or thinking about your own values and relating that to the company values. And that's actually something we spend a lot of time on doing, because we work together with a company called Self Leaders, and their whole idea is that you create engagement if you're aware of your own values and behaviors, and what's important for you in life. And actually, if you look at research, and I thought that was super interesting when they brought that up, that companies such as, I know Google, I guess, is like super good at talking about their values. Their employees could wake up in the morning and just say, okay, these are our values, these are our behaviors. And that's good, and that creates engagement. But what they found, and what they have found in several research, is if you combine employees that knows about the company values, but on top of that, that also can relate their own personal values to the company values, it has a big difference if you add that extra layer. So answering your question, I think, for example, when we did interviews with employees after establishing our new behaviors, it was interesting to see that everyone related to the behaviors in different ways. And I thought, again, that was a good thing, because that meant that, okay, our employees has actually sat down and thought about what's important for me, instead of just like, oh, this is Joblyon, I can describe it with corporate language and a certain type of wording that I should use. But I would say it was still one thing that I saw a theme, and I would definitely say that everyone brought up something that was related to like connections in the team. Like, I work here and wake up in the morning not because I want to earn my salary, it's because I want to meet my colleagues. I want to feel that the job I do every day helps them also, and the company, and also that you feel seen and you feel heard as an employee. I think those two things stood out.
That is absolutely very, very interesting, and I think I really like the part about connecting your values to the company's values, because I think there's obviously, if there's a dissonance there, then the person would not stay with the company, or hopefully people will leave if they see that there is a
and that's what happened at the Nent Group or Viaplay Group. That of course the employees, because we asked the employees, to do their value trees, and you very like visually working with that, and spend a lot of time on doing it, because it takes time. And I remember actually when I sat down the first time, when of course we had to try it out ourselves before we had these big workshops with thousands of employees. It was actually everyone in the company was involved in the workshop. So it was of course divided in different workshops, but 1,000 employees had to do this, evaluation of their values. And I think because of that, of course, as you said, and again with the retention aspect, some employees realized that, okay, wait, these are my values. I cannot sign up for this again. So it was much more clear. So for that reason as well, to get the employees to understand, is this the right company for me or not?
A question that I usually get from founders is related to when they're building a global company. How do they maintain the culture cross-border? It could also be like a cross-department setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you will naturally have sub-cultures within a development team or a sales team. So how do you facilitate for that, or do you try to limit it or police it, or what's your approach to ensuring that there's not, like, they're not going too far away from the core?
Super hard question to answer, and I don't know if I have an answer, to be honest, because I can just look at Joblyon today. I mean, we're 50 employees. You cannot compare that to big enterprise. And even at Joblyon, of course, I see a struggle with the fact that we have teams in different countries. So I would say on a daily basis, we do our best in trying to connect everyone with, for example, it could be basic things such as like Slack. I think there's a lot of things you can use there, like donuts where people get connected. I usually get connected with someone I never talk to. And for me, I think it's super good, because then I have to sit down, I have to take a digital fika or a coffee with our engineers in Brazil. So I think you need to, it's hard. You need to find your way of doing it. But also, as you said in the beginning, also understand that it will be subcultures. If it's a big company, I mean, you will not have a team that has the same preferences, and everyone will not collaborate. But I think, again, there's a lot of things you can automate there to help you or help the employees to connect with each other. And also, if you have a good, I think the HRM system is super valuable. If you have a good HRM system, that can help you a lot, and it can help HR a lot to automate things. So I know, like, for example, Hi Bob, if you look at that tool, I guess there are other HRMs that do the same thing, but they connect their employees based on hobbies and personal interests. And you don't have to do that much. The only thing you do is when you start, you add, okay, I like singing, I love karaoke, and then you get connected with someone that has the same interest, but perhaps it's on the other side of the globe. So I guess this is more like not on a strategic level, more like what you can do on a day-to-day basis. So I don't have a straightforward answer like this is how you solve it, because I guess it's very complex. Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense, and I think especially like combining people's or getting people together that have different interests, or using tools such as Donuts, that sort of breaks those silos more. And if we can do that in a natural, automated way, then why not? I think that's a very good points. Do you use other types of tools while we're talking about tools? You mentioned Donut. What else are you using when it comes to your culture suite?
We also have, and I would say it's not tools, it's more actually thanks to our employees that they I think put a lot of time and effort in like organizing their own gatherings. So for example, I know that the engineering team, without anyone telling them to do so, just because they want to, they created things such as a book club where they discuss like the months or the week's book with the engineering team. So I'm actually, and I guess that's a luxurious thing for me as HR, that I have employees actually, arranging sessions across teams and within their teams a lot. But of course, I see a challenge ahead. Like now, when we're growing, when you reach that, I think it's interesting, stage when you reach like 70 employees, 80 employees, then all of a sudden, unfortunately, you perhaps need to step in a bit when you're working with HR.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very good point. And I think you're lucky as a person in the people team that people take that initiative. But I also think it's kudos on like, apparently you've created a culture where that is natural, where people take initiative because they care about coworkers, they want to connect with them. So I think that's
and also I just realized, and I know a lot of companies do that as well, but we have this yearly trip that we call Gcation. It's not a trip that's the purpose is not like to go to a new destination and have workshops together. It's more like, okay, let's just gather everyone and then we work together from a new spot. And I think those type of sessions, even though it's just one time per year, it's so much easier for all the remote employees to, gather up. We work for 10 days together. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we were in Portugal. I connected with a lot of employees that, of course, I got to know them during the hiring process, but I haven't, talked with them for several weeks since they started. And I just realized, sitting down with them, having coffee, we did like a hackathon, those type of things. It's so much easier, of course, to connect over Slack when you know, okay, what is the person behind it? So I think those trips are, at least for us, very, very important.
Yeah. Do you do anything more tangible in a day-to-day setting? You mentioned that you go on these trips, you have performance review based on the values and the culture. Do you do anything more like tangible stuff? I don't know, merch or posters on the wall. Like these are cliche stuff. I don't know if they work or not, but I also see companies doing it. So do you do anything like nudges for people to remember the culture?
Oh, you mean in terms of like how to...
more like physical stuff, or I don't know, newsletters on culture. It could be anything. Like, do you do anything like remind people about the culture?
Yeah, good question. I would say, to be honest, not on a day-to-day basis, but we have different initiatives that we do, again, related to like the importance of leaderships. We talk a lot about it in different forums where we have leadership training and leadership forums. Like we always try to relate what we're doing to the values in those type of sessions. And also we just created a mentorship program that is called our Protege program, where we actually nominate or pick out employees based on our values and behaviors. So it's basically the employees that lives the values and behaviors. We pick 5 to 6 persons each year. They get the opportunity to have a mentor, and then we have workshops together with them and create a development plan, and spend a little extra time on those type of employees. And of course, hopefully now when we do it each year, everyone will be able to be a part of that program. But that I would say is one thing. And also we have this kudos channel on Slack. So it's basically everyone jumping in, giving each other kudos. I think that's also related to your previous question, like how we connect to each other. So we highlight when someone is performing or doing a great job in different ways. And I think I as people in culture, I use our values a lot there. When, for example, we had a Halloween party, and I wanted to highlight, okay, it's not only about work. We had a group of people, spending their private time and blood, sweat, and tears to try to organize this great party. And I think that was, you could clearly see how that was related to our like passion for people and a lot of our behaviors related to that value.
Just a quick question on the like, not the blooper side of things, but like what are those mistakes that you've done throughout your career within like the people and culture space that you would do differently? Blooper is a harsh word, but like what are those stuff that you would have changed doing it over again?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of my career, I worked at this tech startup. It was that like 7 years ago, and it was my first role working with HR. And I had no experience actually working with culture and values, and I remember it so clearly. I did everything wrong because my experience was talent acquisition, recruitment, and it was similar type of role that I have today. And I came in, they already have their values in place, and it was this like only values that for me, I didn't really understand them. But I guess a blooper there was that I didn't question. I was like, okay, these are the values. Can someone explain them to me? And because I didn't understand them, I didn't, do the work. I didn't, really try to understand the employees, and I should have actually done the journey that we've done here at Joblyon. But I guess lack of experience, being young, I was just like, I just bought into it. And I would say that was a big mistake, because that affected, now looking back, everything I did, because my job there was mainly to scale up the team. And looking back, I mean, we managed to scale up the team, but I'm not sure we perhaps found the right type of personas. Again, they were really good on CV, on paper, and I think that might have been one of the reasons why, we didn't manage to reach the goals. Again, back to where I started, like, we didn't have a plan for it. People just, they gave me a paper and said, okay, we're going to scale this team, let's go. And I had don't get me wrong, I love that company. I had a amazing 3 years there, but it was definitely a school. I learned a lot, especially in terms of culture and just doing the groundwork. So if I would have done that, I could have used it, throughout end to end my work every day, but I couldn't. So
makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing, and I think a lot of people out there can relate to that. Being at the start of a career, you don't question stuff, so you just sort of embrace, and then you act on that. So I think maybe lessons learned for people going into that type of work for the first time, then try to take a step back and question stuff before you press play.
Definitely.
What do you, on that sort of mistakes or challenges or misconceptions topic, what do you see as the sort of biggest mistake that companies make when it comes to company culture? So maybe also bigger companies and more experienced HR leaders.
I would say it's two things. I already been touching upon them, but it's not having a purpose with your culture. You just define it. Oh, this is our culture, and you don't understand why and how to use it. And the second part that I've been talking a lot about already, but just put in the frame, put on the wall, you don't implement it end to end. And thirdly, you don't have the management team and leaders behind you. You need to have a team that understands that I'm accountable to speak up when I see behaviors that are not the behaviors that we should show at this company. So you need to have brave leaders, I would say, to dares to do that. So I would say those are three things.
Good, very valid points. Where do you see sort of the culture work expanding from now, like more of the trend area? What would you see any sort of mega trends when it comes to the area of culture? Like in recruitment, we see different types of tools or systems and AI, etc. Do you see anything specific when it comes to culture?
Yeah, I think culture is something that you, of course, continuously need to work with. Is the human interaction that's important. But now, of course, I mean, it's hard not to mention everything that is going on with AI, automation, and I would say that you can use automation and AI a lot to save you time on those admin tasks. It could be, for example, in our processes, we send out like a landing page and a document about our culture before our first interview. So that type of things that I, as a like, I don't necessarily need to sit down and press send to each and every candidate. Of course, I can do that in our ATS Joblyon, like just promoting our culture before an interview. And that's just a small example. Of course, you can do it, automate things in terms of your culture. Also in pre-onboarding, we do that a lot, sending out automated emails when someone signs a contract, they reach a landing page, and then you get to know the team and those type of activities. Because again, I think it's important to not lose the human interaction. But I think today with AI and automation, there's a lot of tools that I think HR should not be afraid of using. So you can save time to get more time to spend on interviews and things like that.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I think automation is going to play a big part in how you can expand the culture, just ensure that you have the right focus on it. I also think that data, try to understand the organization better with AI, that will probably be possible, looking at different connections. We mentioned a bit like how do you measure culture, and it's a combination of employee satisfaction, you have retention, but hopefully in the future you can connect the input and output of the culture work even better. Time will show. I'm hopeful, at least.
My dream would be, to just, if I go into Joblyon, I look at the candidate profile, to just get AI to help me get this overview in terms of, we already have a lot automated in terms of you get a score in terms of personality, but I'm thinking about the dream world for me to see, okay, this personality, like in 5 years, you'll be able to maybe hire this person for this type of role instead. So you can also look at the future and also how that person matches your team, and just get that gathered at the same place would be amazing. And I don't think we're already there. It's just that we have to start exploring it more. Yeah.
That's cool. Are you pushing the product team to jump on that?
It's sweaty in terms of AI. A lot of things there. Yeah, for sure.
They have like Jobyon's roadmap, and they have Karin's roadmap. That's sort of duality in workflow.
Yeah. Definitely. But I would say, since our customers are HR, our customers are really good at challenging us and making sure that we're up to date all the time. Yeah.
Time's up, Karin. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. It was so much fun.
It was really, really cool, and thank you so much for being very open about Joblyon and the process, and it just very interesting and inspiring on how to address culture as a concept, or how you can ensure that culture is lived throughout the organization, and that you can drive the change you want to see. And also the purpose part of it. That's something that's stuck with me. Good. Link it to the purpose.
And thank you too. It was very interesting to hear that you actually did the change from having behaviors in place, but then changing it. I mean, that's an even bigger challenge. So I'm impressed that you did that.
Work in progress. So let's reconnect in a year time, and I'll see where.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to do that.
Perfect. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. We're coming out with a new episode every month.